how do you bring a culture that has gone through so much in their past and that suddenly through English that's been exposed? And then we're working on overcoming that through the language. So even though you're upgrading skills, you're entering culture, you're entering belief systems, you're entering a
Yeah.
lot of things that are much more than just a language.
Hey everyone, this is Anthony for a new episode of Your Brothers podcast. Today I'm with my friend, Mr. Ivan Oshanahan Valentine. We met 9 months ago and we had the opportunity to speak together first on a project. We built a course for his clients together, and then we decided to just move along and have some masterminds every 2 weeks, challenging each other's beliefs and growing as a person. Ivan is very open-minded, a free thinker. He loves to travel, he loves adventure, he loves good things in life, and it's always a pleasure to speak with him every 2 weeks. So Ivan, I know you're a business owner, you own a language company, and I would like you to tell me more about your vision and mission with these beautiful companies, please, my friend.
First of all, thank you so much, Anthony, for having me on. I really appreciate you choosing me to come on the podcast. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to my business, it's evolved over time, but it
Mhm.
definitely was born out of the frustration of the traditional way of doing things in terms of education. And we're trying to basically, right now, the main focus is helping companies attract, elevate the skills, and strengthen the culture through a really necessary tool and skill, which is improving the English skills of their employees
Mhm.
and their directors, for example, could also be because it creates a lot of engagement. It's something they do on a weekly basis. So
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for the business to kind of build a better culture, especially obviously non-native English speakers in remote teams, right, when they're working online. So yeah, it's evolving. We've grown over time and we're innovating as the needs change year by year. My company is based in Medellin. It's obviously remote, but it was born face to face. And it's mainly focused on Colombians right now. But I do have clients from Brazil, I've from Ecuador, I've had
Uh-huh.
Spanish ones too. So yeah, but it seems South America is kind of the hub right now in terms of remote teams working with the
Yeah.
US and Canada.
So we're gonna go back a bit in time, and we can come back on more of this South America later. First of all, so you were just English teacher back in the days. What was the turning point between you being a teacher in schools and deciding, man, this is not gonna work long term. It's not maybe fulfilling enough. I need something new. I need my business. And maybe what was wrong about the education? Because I think most people will agree in life that nowadays courses are maybe obsolete for languages. Maybe it's too focused on just grammar or just reading. So how came all this idea of changing the industry?
Okay, so
Good question.
obviously, before I started thinking like that, I got a teaching cert to travel the world. That's what I wanted. That's what I was dreaming about. I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to go to Australia, but I wanted to have some freedom, right? So I decided to take the teaching course, and I started teaching English in language schools in the UK,
Hmm.
then in China,
In China.
then I traveled a little bit to Bali, then Australia. And then in Australia, I had a partner which was from Medellin. So once our visas expired, we decided to come over. And when I was in one of the language schools, I I got to the point that I started to hate teaching. I
Really?
truly, absolutely hate it. And I was wondering because I enjoyed that period of time through the past 8 years. And now suddenly I'm hating teaching. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, what is this? What is the problem? And I started to identify a couple of things. So the first thing I identified was the framework that was being pushed, and it was something that didn't allow students to be the protagonists, right? So most of the time, it was focused on the teacher lecturing. That's traditional education,
Yeah.
right? And I started to identify what framework can we create where the student is the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to think like that. And the first thing was they have to speak more in class. That's the
Yeah,
first one.
of course.
Teacher, shut up, and
Mm-hmm.
the students speak.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. The second thing is that people start things, but they don't finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they start, but they don't finish. So what are the conditions? What is the framework that they're working with that keeps them excited? They lean forward and accomplish their goals, right?
Yeah.
And finally, it's the confidence. There's a certain fear in making mistakes that is making people stop. How do you bring a culture that has gone through so much in their past and that suddenly through English that's been exposed?
Hmm.
And then we're working on overcoming that through the language. So even though you're upgrading skills, you're entering culture, you're entering belief systems, you're entering a
Yeah.
lot of things that are much more than just a language. And that's the beauty. That's what makes me excited, is to help people be better people. And the language is one of those pains that forces people to go inwards.
Yeah.
And that is exciting. I don't know if I answered your question. I don't
Yeah,
know if
absolutely.
I made
And
that.
it's leading me to another very good question I have for you here. So, because you taught in many countries, can you tell me a bit about the difference between the mentalities of different countries uh, in regards to learning English? So, for example, Chinese versus Colombians, do they have the same mental blocks, or it's going to change a bit according to their own background and culture and how they were raised, everything like this?
Okay, I do think it changes.
Hmm.
But funnily enough, when you get the teaching cert, right, the way of teaching from the teaching cert is pretty much carried out the same structure in different countries. So the way and the framework is pretty similar. And however, Colombia was the one that actually hadn't adapted to the standard,
Yeah.
and it was really traditional. That's where I saw the real pain. Um, but I think I also taught different people. So I taught teenagers in England, a lot of
Mhm.
teenagers and adults, like young adults. And then in China, I taught kids. So that was completely new. And then I
Was
went
it
back to
difficult to
young
teach
adults in
kids? More
Australia.
difficult with kids than adults, in your experience?
I
Was it
loved
different?
kids. I think
Yeah.
there was like 6-year-olds are amazing.
Uh huh.
When they start turning 10, 11, 12, maybe 9,
More
mm,
difficult.
I don't want to get you banned, but yeah.
Mm.
They're not, I mean, they're okay, but they can be difficult. They can be difficult.
Mm.
But in China, we had a lot of support. We had a nice team, and it was great. It potentialized the teachers and helped the teachers do well. Um, but I do think the pressures are different. I remember in China that one of the things that was really interesting was that when I was teaching the like 14-year-olds, 13, 14-year-olds, and in the book you have all sorts of different topics you can talk
Hmm.
about. And if you ask a simple question of what do you do in your free time, they wouldn't know what to say because they don't have free time because they
Oh,
study
I
all
see.
the time. So
Yeah,
you have a book of so many different topics. They can talk about food and family,
that's it.
but ask them about anything else, and they're studying. They,
Wow.
they, they finish school, go to study this, study that, study that. The competition is insane in China. They have to compete
It's unhealthy.
a
Yeah.
lot.
Have you seen like going? If you got maybe closer to some students, have you seen any maybe mental health problems of over competition? Was it something that you could see like it was obvious that they were overworked, overstressed, overstudying, or you could not like because there was still a
I
distance
didn't see
to
that
the teacher?
because they were kids, right? I
Yeah.
didn't see it. Um, but maybe you can see it when they're kids. I didn't really notice it. Kids want to play, and in English we had a
Mm,
lot of games and activities so it didn't really feel for them like, oh, I have to study hard. They kind of
yeah.
saw it as more like, let I have to do it because my parents sent me here. And if I'm having fun with it, great. So
Yeah.
I try to always make it fun and try to make it engaging as much as possible.
And did you bring the same attitude to now your current business to try to make things fun and then entertaining? Because as adult, it's so serious to learn a language, and often if it's for work, then people will be, oh man, I have to do it. I have to give this effort, but they forget that it's also supposed to be enjoyable to learn languages over time. So, have you a part of? Do you have a part of entertainment in your course and teachings?
It's an interesting thing, that question, because when we talk about entertainment, we talk about China and the kids, right? Kids
Yeah,
need to play. I think is important. I think
yeah.
adults need to play too, but in Colombia, they know they play a lot. They don't need to play as much.
So just
I
studying,
think
no
I
play in
I
the course.
identify. It's not about that. I mean, I do get it, but I do think that I it goes down to this. We have so much entertainment, and we talked about this the other day. Consuming, being entertained.
Mhm.
Where is the point that we are leaning forward in our lives and taking responsibility for something
Mhm.
and truly taking it seriously, taking your life seriously? But it doesn't mean you have to be like,
Yeah.
you can take life seriously and have fun,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's about living with purpose. So when somebody joins the program, feeling the sensation that they're actually taking their goal seriously, their life seriously, but it doesn't mean it's like frown face and just like
Hmm.
that's not what serious means for me,
Yeah.
right? Um, it's just being connected with authenticity, with your purpose, and helping each other be accountable. And I
Hmm.
think that's the biggest thing, right? Creating the conditions where a person can be super excited to not just join, but to be in charge of learning something new,
Yeah.
right? For them, that will change their life, but also enjoy the process, right? I think that's important. But if it's meaningful for them, if it's connected to their interests, if it's connected we like deep conversations. We like to
Hmm.
go a little bit deeper. With lower levels, we do more like the fun and games, but it's about that framework that gets people excited to just be like, wow, I'm part of this. I'm excited. It's meaningful. I'm making it happen. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm. And for example, if you teach adults right now and you see they lose motivation, do you bring them back the big why from the onboarding week? Or because I believe for many people with languages, this is the main thing. They start super excited, maybe 1 month, 2 months, maybe even less, and then they drop, they quit because things get tough, of course, with the language. Yeah, like English, French, or any other language. So I'm also a teacher, and I have many experience with that of like, oh man, those verbs or this grammar part. So how do you keep people committed from when they first sign up with your program and make them last to the end compared to other businesses which maybe don't have the same stickiness?
Great question. A great question because that's key. I think it's there's a part of our methodology where it includes kind of we have an action plan and we have a conversation every week with groups is bi-weekly, but every week, imagine we have a conversation, and the conversation is where they evaluate how their week went because there's not things that just happen in class, but also what happens outside the class so that they commit that time of exposure to the language, right? So not only they're exposed to things they actually enjoy and like, right? Which is keeps them engaged, but is the key is the conversation between the mentor. We don't even call each other teachers, between the mentor and the
Uh-huh.
student. And it's not about this teacher or the mentor telling them, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. It's about them going through the action plan, right? And we have a way in which they rate themselves of their effort and performance, right?
Mhm.
We don't judge them. They judge themselves from their perception. And it's our job as mentors to understand how to potentialize their perception of the week
Uh-huh.
for their benefit. So let's say, for example, someone comes in and says, I give myself a 5 out of 10.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we see that they had a really difficult week, a lot of work, and they were stressed, things, personal things happened, right? Are we gonna like say that's terrible, let's go? No.
Mm.
It's about understanding that push and pull,
Yeah.
right? And that's the real toughness. Like, what is their emotional perception of how they see themselves and how we can get them to be excited for the next week? And a lot of the times it's like, okay, so if you save a five, why do you give yourself a five and not a three? So we kind of force them to give themselves a pat on the
Oh,
back for
that's
something.
interesting.
So, oh, I came to class, I did this, I did fantastic, great. So
Hmm.
how do we get the five to a six or a seven? What do we do? What can we do? And then the person will give themselves. So we understand from the tone of voice where they're at, and we are helping them guide themselves and be their own leaders, but we're holding them accountable to their leadership,
Yeah.
right? I think that's key, and I think that conversation really resonates, and at the end of that, you can feel the energy,
Hmm.
right? And it's super different also. And we ask them a question, which a lot of the times when you build a relationship with a teacher, sometimes it's hard to give suggestions to your mentor
Yeah.
from a perception of like help without being a victim, right? Without them being like, oh, I don't like this, or from a perception of like support and camaraderie. And this is that we also ask them, what score do you give me in the dynamic that I'm creating? And a lot of the times they give you like a 9, 10, or because they're nice, but you can always ask them why a 9 or why the 10? What did you particularly enjoy or what did you
Hmm.
particularly appreciate? And you can actually start getting and understanding what triggers them to do amazing. And I think when you start tapping into that and you understand that, then you can go and you can then say also it's like why not a two, like if they're 9, why not a 10? Like what is it? And a lot of the times we want to drive them to the point it's like, oh, they kind of don't want to really judge you, which I tell them, what can I do to help you be better?
Hmm.
Right? It's not personal. And when you start leaving the personal on the side and it's about me being the best self for you, because we can be best selves in different ways to
Yeah.
other people, to different people. But if my job is to potentialize you, how can what part of my personality and my character or my style can help you get to the next level? Some people request pushing more. Some people request
Hmm.
more accountability. Some people request, more fun, more relaxed, right? Understanding that's going to help them,
Yeah.
right? So we kind of filter, is that going to potentialize them or not? So there's like some sort of base rules,
Hmm.
and then they will uh, help us guide them better, right? So it's them being in charge of us somehow.
That's
So
beautiful.
I treat it like that. I treat it like that,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that I want to pursue a little bit more and improve. But I think that conversation really helps people really take charge and learn how to be their own leaders. Uh,
Absolutely. You know what comes to mind when you say that? I'm curious if all this beautiful methodology, have you tried to use it on your own life in terms of other projects and just
yeah,
languages? Because I hear that and I realize this
yeah.
this grading system and how like what is
Honestly,
missing
it
for me
can
to
be
get a
done with
10.
everything.
That's what I think people would like to hear that because
Obviously,
any other project.
my
Yeah.
expertise and my experience has been English. I've started with that, and now I'm evolving that. I'm making sure that
Hmm.
I do something. But I do think that that methodology can be, if you can think about it, you can do it with different things. Like with my trainer, like at the gym, implementing that system could be fantastic. Any sort of coaching can use that very well, and it can definitely work for many things. So
Yeah.
it really truly helps you. That's true. It's like it could work with any skill in
So
many
for example,
respects, but that requires
yeah,
leadership from yourself somehow.
somebody who will want to change career. So that will be always one of my theme for my podcast because I'm helping people transition from one career to the other, something more entrepreneurial, usually for most clients. So if you start to grade yourself, let's say you are an engineer, you want to become a business owner, and you don't know how to move from one thing to the other, or just a teacher towards CEO of your own language school like you did, well, how are we going to keep in track for like week after week that I'm going to take positive constructive actions toward the transition? Because I think it could be quite overwhelming, and maybe you can confirm that when you're an employee and you want to move to something completely new that is your own, there's so much to learn, so much to read about, watch videos. It can be quite overwhelming, I think, for anybody who's a solopreneur or wanting to be one. So do you have any
So
advice for that? Because you made it happen.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, if I think about it, right, I've had this in my mind that gets me excited, right? And it's about I look at it from a perspective of a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say an Iron Man, right?
Yeah.
Like it has like this shield with a lot of different things that can make you fly, shoot, whatever, right? Like, what is your ideal superhero as a person? Like, who do you want to become
Mm-hmm.
to the maximum of your ability? Right. So I look at it from that perspective, and there's probably health, wealth, relationships. There's a spectrum, right? If you look at the wheel of life, kind of like
Yeah.
finding, optimizing everything, right? At the end of the day, I look at it from that perspective. Oh, that would be amazing. Like, and it's not just about uh, finding your accountability and that system that you could potential at different parts of your life, but having someone that holds you accountable, having a team. It's like you see a boxer going down the ring, you see a whole team. You have the buddies from back at school that make him laugh
Mm-hmm.
and just get him powered up. Then you have the coach, very responsibility, that's huge responsibility. You have maybe family, maybe girlfriend, maybe wife or kids. There's a whole team.
Mm-hmm.
What is your ideal team to make you the best version of yourself?
Yeah.
It's not that they're gonna like force you. It's like, who do you choose to be surrounded by that is gonna
Mm.
get you to that next level? So I do think like there's all these courses, all these and I need coaching, and I'm right now in one of the coachings, and it's really important to have different people that potentialize yourself, because the mindset that you started, like the way I started my business, is very different to the way I'm thinking today, right? So I do think that having a space for your mindset to be challenged and to give yourself permission to open up your mind is
Mm-hmm.
key. So that's why, for example, there's courses where they charge a lot of money so that you're like, okay, they're an authority, I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't pay a lot of money, you won't listen. So
That's
a
so
lot of the
true.
times it's about allowing yourself to listen and really wanting and trusting another person to guide you. That's really difficult, right? I know one of my clients, like they're they have a big company with thousands of employees, and they it's a family kind of run business. The father passed away, so the without you know it was like it wasn't expected, and the kids, the brother and the sister took over, but they haven't had the growth, the leadership growth
I see.
from like the grind.
Mm-hmm.
They were put in that position, and they want to impact the leadership or the impact the culture of the company. Asking for help is complicated
Mm.
because they're at this position where they haven't actually gone through the motions of maybe asking for help
Yeah.
before, to go through different processes. But I do think asking for help and listening is probably like the key. Challenge your beliefs constantly, constantly. Um, I don't know
Which
how to
I have,
say that, but I
yeah.
don't know if I correct or like guide me maybe to explain it better. I don't know.
Just I was thinking like which beliefs did you have to let go in order to move
Mm,
from teaching to being CEO? And I know you were teaching for your company, but now you said you're retiring from teaching in your own
yeah, I
company. That's the
already
next
stopped.
level. You stopped already a couple of months ago.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
like beautiful and powerful. And what were the big beliefs that they were holding you back? That, oh, but it's maybe it's easier income, because I know we spoke about this a couple of times on our masterminds. I think it's quite interesting
Mm.
for you to explain how, which kind of mental transformation you've been through to be able to go from, okay, I'm not going to teach anymore, I'm just going to be in charge and learn to delegate better, and see how it goes, and believe in yourself on that role, in that role.
So that's amazing. I mean, that's a question that I'm thinking from the perspective of actually the first time I asked for help properly, and I truly listened. And I was actually, it was in the pandemia,
Hmm.
right? I'm a person that is very social, so I have different social groups, and that kind of balances my emotions and my ego and my emotional stability. So that was completely removed, right? And I was very frustrated with a lot of things. And I got to the point that I started getting a little depressed, and I didn't even notice that I was getting depressed. But there was a trigger. I know that maybe this happened over time until I get to keep, but there was one specific trigger, and it was this trigger that really made me feel powerless.
Hmm.
And I knew a coach that actually helped my students, and I said, I think I want to actually have a session with you, or I want to talk. So I started talking about that, and it really, I started to go inwards, and I started to have like realizations, and I started to have like these like amazing feelings. Um, so I started to trust in the process. It's like once you get like a few results, you start to be like, okay, if this works, let's keep doing it.
Yeah.
And in business, I was also a little bit stuck. So I also bought a program, a Max
Hmm.
uh, program. Uh, and because a friend of mine recommended it to me because I was in a limit. And then I said, okay, you know what? If they're making more money than me, I should shut up,
Yeah.
listen, and do exactly what they say. I did it, and I had results. So, okay, Ivan, you should listen more
Yeah.
and just be guided by people that do it better than you. Like if
Hmm.
someone's doing better than you in something, listen, listen, and learn how to take advice. I think that that is being the key for me. It's learning how to be guided and trusting others, especially people that know more than I do in certain things.
Yeah.
And that was a big steps. There were big steps for me in that sense. Listening to others is key, and learning how to listen. I'm still learning how to listen, and now I'm, well, because I stopped teaching.
Because you
There's
want
a
to be
natural
right, maybe.
feeling. There's a natural feeling that there's a point that when I stopped, I knew I had to stop. When I did it, it was a big identity crisis or something because for such a long time, I have been feeling this dopamine,
Hmm.
from being a teacher. That's
Yeah.
one of the traps of teaching. And I think one of the dark sides of teaching is that there's a point that you depend and you're kind of a little bit of a people pleaser, but you
Makes
depend
sense. Yeah.
from their feedback somehow, or like,
To feel good about
yes, it's
yourself.
nice to help people, but if you do it all the time, there's an ego part that starts building an
Ah.
identity that you're like, this is me, this is what I do. And when you just let go of that, I had a
Hmm.
little bit of a crisis. I was
Yeah.
feeling, I was like, oh my God, like, who, who am I? Who am I now? And, but I've actually understood my role a bit better now. And I get excited about the idea of looking at people and seeing how do I elevate this person to the next level for my team, my mentors.
Yeah.
How do I build teams and build them? How do I grab a person that their motivation is X, Y, and I'm like, fantastic. What is the best road I can bring them into to elevate not just them but my business? Win-win. It's about
Hmm.
how to elevate, and it just brings me a lot of joy to learn about that. And a lot of that learning is about being a better leader. And I think that if I'm a better leader as a human being myself, I can also do anything I want with myself in a personal life.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic because yeah, I'm helping my business grow, but I'm also helping myself grow. And I think that that's when I can connect both, I'm on point. It's all good. I
Do you
feel
think that
excited and purposeful.
anybody can be a leader? Everybody that is your student or partner, can anybody has a normal, maybe natural leader inside in a different area, maybe not the traditional, oh, he's a leader of this company, but demonstrate some different kind of leadership? Is it something that you see in people, or you think some are born leaders? What is your
You know,
perspective on that?
you look, if you're born in a certain in a certain environment that prompts you to believe that you can lead, or you're a natural leader, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or your ego is a little stronger, you're a little bit of
Hmm.
a psychopath, whatever. Like maybe you have some natural tendencies to not really care about what people think, and
Yeah.
maybe that props you, but in a way that would probably have consequences in the future.
But that's not
A lot
good
of our
leadership. Yeah.
leaders, I would
Yeah.
say, um, you know, they want to be leaders, and that maybe that's the problem too. I
Mm.
think I think power, and I've not reached this level of power at all right now, but I can sense that if you have a lot of ego and you are giving a lot of power, or all those insecurities that you have, or all the things all the traumas you've been through, those are multiplied by 10 when you become a leader. So you got to earn your stripes to be a good leader. And I think you got to go through a lot of internal growth. I think everybody is a leader somehow because, again, they're by, you know, there's an innate survival instincts for human beings. So they got to take responsibility for something, right? In some ways or another. But it's the choice. Do you want to be a leader or not?
Mm.
And if you want to be a leader, what can you do to do? What can you work on to become that? What I think lacks in society is if we look at education, where are they promoting leadership mindset since schools?
Nowhere.
Where? Nowhere. Nowhere. So what happens is that, oh, some people are natural leaders. I do think it's just we are not being given the opportunity to decide truly,
Yeah.
and that's sad. That's what really drives me. That anger drives me for my business. That frustration somehow. Um, how do we help people? And the methodology we talked about, the
Mhm.
framework of helping people take responsibility for their learning, be excited about learning. It's a form of leadership. And if you can lead yourself, I think you can lead others. Right?
Yeah. So you think that society conditioned kids to be just employees and be in the mold? And I'm 100%, I agree with that so much. And as you know, I'm in the Grant Cardone's coaching program, not in the accelerator, and he speaks a lot about like the educational system right now is broken, and you can literally spend years and thousands of dollars on certain things that actually
Yeah.
are you going to use in real life, and what is the mentality of teachers teaching you this course,
Hmm.
this curriculum? Because if you get maybe infected by their average mentality, then imagine if you do this from kindergarten and elementary school, and just I should be satisfied with what I have, or this is good enough, or and I'm not saying that all teachers are this way, but in general, if you receive help from people who make just 40, 50,000 a year, then you're far away from having a mentor who's making 5 million 500 million, 5 billion a year, not a year, but like net worth. So yeah, I think that's also something big to consider in society. Like if we transform the educational system, who's going to be in charge to teach this? Because usually people who have more success are already busy doing their own things. So that's kind of a loop. Now, I don't know how we can. Is there any solution
But
for that?
yeah, but Anthony, look at there's so many people wanting to help.
Yeah,
It's
that's true.
funny because a lot of successful people have their
Yeah,
own courses, have their own
yeah,
things in Grant
absolutely.
Cardone. Like,
Yeah,
why would Grant Cardone want to help everybody?
yeah.
He could
He
live
doesn't
for the
have
rest
to.
of his life, but there's a lot of successful, whatever success means, but let's say economically successful people that want to help. There's a lot of scammers out there too, but there's a lot of people that genuinely, truly want to help, right? I think that people that are truly successful in different realms of their life want to give back somehow and want to elevate others to that mindset. And it's that how do you tap into a common mindset to get them excited to join the elite mindset, let's say,
Hmm.
right? Like how do you tap into it? So you have to use traditional marketing tools, right? And grab attention, and you have like a window of opportunity to grasp. Like English is an opportunity for people to work on themselves,
Hmm.
right? Because it's a pain. I need English
Yeah.
for X, Y, and Z. Okay, you need English. And now you experience there's fear, there's
Mm.
the lack of leadership in your like there's a lack of
Fear of
passion, there's a lack
rejection
of
from
connection.
people.
Yeah. So so everyone experiences pain in different ways. So once you want to take a responsibility for their pain, how are we bringing those purchases of service or products or something to fix that pain to the point where they are being carried in a journey that changes the mindset of the person. So let's say, a politician is the expert in marketing. I'd say they're probably the best in the world in marketing somehow because they control the whole narrative in many, many ways. And you can argue that, but you could see like a rich person promoting in a way that maybe your belief system doesn't connect to, but a
Hmm.
lot of people do connect to that. And then once they're in, they take a step in that
Yeah.
journey to change the mindset, right? So you can hear a politician, probably a politician will talk to you face to face, and they'll talk to your level, and you'll be like, oh, makes sense, that guy's pretty cool, right? But then you have them rallying and saying, "Oh, this is stupid," and then everyone's like, "Yeah," and you're like, "Oh, that's dumb. That's not great. That I don't believe in that." And it's the same person. So look, if you look at, I do think critical thinking is key. Um, I do think when you society looks to for idea for some sort of leaders, right? It could be a warrior, it could be God, it could be a celebrity, it could be we are looking some sort of we are looking to idealize our parents, right? And then we got a little disappointed, but then we learn to humanize them. But we're looking for leaders all the time. And if your teacher is your leader, you're going to be influenced by their mindset. So it's about maybe choosing being learning how to choose your leaders, learning how to not just be told what to do, but you actually choose what you want to believe. And that's the hard. What kind of framework of education do you want to receive
Yeah.
in order to empower you? But we can't help it but to be like want to be like someone. We have that innate in our being. So I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm rambling, but maybe some
No, no,
thoughts.
it's very good, and I really like the idea when you said about like people who are already successful and they want to help, and it's true because yes, there's a misconception that like oh, rich people they just think about themselves or they want to just make more money, but that's usually poor people saying that about people who have success. Yeah, I come from Quebec, Canada, and in Quebec we have this mentality like in French. Okay, if I translate from French to English, like be born for a little bread, and that's like this is what I gave you. You take that and you shut up. And I think it's very dangerous to have this mentality as a, if you start your life like this, then you can never, if you have any inspiration inside, anything creative, anything innovative, then it gets shut down and it's like, man, I don't know, I like to draw, but if I draw, man, then my father will say I'm girlish or whatever, yeah. So to
Yeah.
encourage the next generation, that I think that would be good, like in the system in general. Yes, have the normal curriculum, but also have something that will help them to discover what do they truly love and what they're talented in, or what we can see like, that's quite unique. How can we build that up from an early age so that they can be masters at 15 instead of 30? If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Might be hard to
I
implement
I
this. My
I
thoughts.
I agree, and but I would scratch the whole system. The whole
That's a big
all of those
that's a big task,
subjects,
man.
like absolutely, like look, fine. There, what are you doing? Are you actually learning what 2 plus 2 is? Which is fine. I don't think you're learning what 2 plus 2 is, right? You're learning about how you're actually training your brain in a certain way to evolve. Because now we have the calculus. We don't really need to know what 2 plus 2 is. We can figure it out here. But what are you triggering with your mind?
Yeah.
Oh, to know the capitals of certain countries, for geography or whatever. You can Google it, you can go Wikipedia, right? So do you really need to know it, or is it what part of your brain are you training? So I
Mm-hmm.
do think we have to understand that there's different parts of our brain that we need to start uh, massaging, let's say, or
Yeah.
getting them, like, and there's certain people that are going to be more enlightened or excited about certain when you start massaging a certain part of the brain than others. But if you're only massaging a certain part of your brain, there's certain people that are going to be like super excited and do really well, and those are the people that get nines and tens and then there was me getting fives and sixes at school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That part of my brain wasn't molded, but now that I have a business, I'm excited. I have fire.
Mm-hmm.
Why wasn't I given that opportunity to have that feeling of fire when I was at school? Right? And I was thinking, I'm not good enough.
Huh.
And then you realize the number doesn't really matter in the real world.
Yeah.
But look, it's not like that part of the brain doesn't matter. Of course, whatever was triggered at school was probably developed something in the brain. But what about the rest? I do think we're tapping into 2 or 3% of what the brain is at
Hmm.
school. What you learn during when you get, you have to defend yourself when you're being bullied
Yeah.
or having to adapt to your, in the playground. I think a lot of the education for society is born in the playground,
Mm-hmm.
not in the classroom. So how do we encourage a dynamic in the playground that builds and massages certain parts of the brains, that builds leadership, that builds better people instead of just punish them if they just. Why don't we encourage certain behaviors in a that promote critical thinking, that promote a massage of different parts of the brain? And classes shouldn't just be in a classroom. It can be a whole experience,
Yeah.
right? And how do we say, okay, what are the different parts of the brain, and how do we create experiences that massage all those different parts of the brain, and then people discover what part of their brain they get excited the most about, and
Mm-hmm.
they go and specialize in that, because it will be naturally feeling. It's not like they will naturally feel excited and compelled to be part of that, right? And they will have a more educated decision into where they want to direct their life in, instead of just a subject. It's not a subject. It's
Yeah.
what part of the brain do you want to like be part of more
I
of
understand.
and get excited about?
But
So it's not the 1 plus 1 is 2. It's what is the brain, the part of the brain that gets you excited, and then living a life more in tune with that, with your intelligences, with your natural behavior. Everyone's intelligent. It's just a matter of
mhm,
discovering what is your kind of
absolutely.
intelligence.
So everybody who didn't have, which I think I would assume almost everybody didn't have the chance to experience this as a child, and now they're 25, 30, 35, 40 or more.
Hmm.
how to get in touch with like discovering what they truly love to do and not judge themselves. For example, somebody wants to become a mechanics or just like astrology or gardening, and maybe they judge themselves like, but this is not worthy to go for because there's no money in that compared to my job that I
Hmm.
have right now, making already
Yep.
80K, 100K, 200K.
Look, and I do think, and I learned this from a podcast from Tyler, from the RSD guys, and he said in a podcast, to be free, there's two things that can maybe give you freedom, because it's the feeling of freedom that can you can do whatever you want. One
Mm-hmm.
is safety. We've been conditioned to be fearful,
Yes.
and we think a 9 to 5 job is safe. And
Mm.
then you're fired like that. Like we're
Yeah.
coming into a recession. A lot of people are going to get fired.
Dangerous as hell.
But the government, don't worry, the government will take care of it. Not in Colombia. So that's why in Colombia people have to be,
Hustle, baby.
on point. Yeah, and they have to have a community that they trust, right? At least, or they have to have some sort of energy that pushes them to do more. But safety is the first one, and safety can be getting in money, right? In like community, right? So we make decisions. So when we want to be free, and then we look for safety somehow. But I do think what I'm coming to, it's in order for people to to say I want to try something different, or I want to do something that's different. What is stopping them is fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, and that fear has been is pumped in the news, is pumped in education. Don't do this, don't do this. And so it's all of those mental conditioning that you've had. So first of all, understand that it maybe it's not your true self that is stopping you. It's just a conditioning that you've had from society. A lot of people break out of the matrix of bad conditions maybe by making a lot of money, and then they don't have to worry about it, right? They're just feeling, oh, now I can travel, I can do this, and they can start looking outward. But it truly, it's like feeling that whatever happens in life, you're good. If
Yeah.
your health and your mind and your body are fine, anything's possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? Anything's possible. Now, what is the ecosystem? What is your Iron Man ecosystem that will make you feel like I can have $1 million or zero? I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll be fine. What do you trust? So the sensation of safety, and they're talking about the idea of spirituality or God, like no matter what, there were people that are spiritual have a lot of more power
Mm-hmm.
to overcome things than people that are maybe not spiritual. Maybe that's kind of tapping into something different, but I do think some sort of faith, some confidence that is born out of whatever. But imagine you have confidence even if you have nothing. That's why when we see people that have gone through a difficult situation, or people that have no arms or legs and are giving conferences on
Yeah.
confidence,
Uh-huh.
just imagine, we're like, oh, I don't, I have everything and I'm complaining. So what I'm saying is, how do you become so confident in yourself that you can do everything when you have nothing? Like, where do you what journey do you have to go through? What experiences do you have to go through to feel excited and powerful no matter what? And I think that is the key.
Man.
What builds you that? And a lot of the times is investing in mindset. So if we look at
Mm-hmm.
coaching can be a
Yeah.
great tool in order to like help how to kind of unlock all those beliefs, and you become freer and more powerful. Um, but there's different experiences. I think experiences of pain are great teachers, right? I do
What
think that
was
there's this concept.
go sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I will let you finish.
Um, okay. I do think. Um, where was I? yes, the idea of pursuit of happiness
Hmm.
has been interpreted a little different. There's a book called Anti-Fragile. What if true happiness is actually if you don't feel challenged or in pain, you're not happy. Just imagine you flip it. We're looking at happiness as pleasure a lot of the time.
Yeah.
What
Uh-huh.
if we decide like if you're not in pain somehow, okay, I'm not saying like be whipped or something like that, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
well,
Challenges,
that
just
might be,
life
but
challenges.
like if you're not like if you're like you have a goal and you're pushing through and you're feeling challenged and you feel pain, imagine if you feel like challenged and in pain and you feel that that is the actual state that tells you you're in growth and you're
Mm,
actually improving. What
absolutely.
if we actually treat that as real happiness? And if you're not feeling that, you're not happy.
Oof,
It would
man,
like your brain is like, what? What does that mean?
that's
I've never
amazing.
thought
It's a
about
bomb
that. But
on the
just
head.
it's like that feeling of excitement of like, oh, let's go, let's like that warrior, right? We are thinking that we have to look for pleasure. Man, I lived in Bali for 3 months once. And I didn't, and I surf, and it's my dream. At some point, I was like, man, I
Something is
like,
missing.
what is this? I need. And then I went to Australia and I worked, and I like to surf and work hard
Yeah,
and overcome challenges. So I do think have a life where there's challenges, and then you're gonna go through
that you
different pains
choose.
and things, and that kind of life is gonna be so meaningful and so exciting somehow. I look at pain as like, yeah, like I was thinking of the recession coming, right?
Hmm.
We have this recession coming, or it's here, and people are like worried, and what do I do? What do I do this? I woke up the other day in my bed. I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
hard
gonna
time. Bring it on,
suffer. I'm
baby.
gonna go through difficulty. If I lose everything, oh my God, what am I gonna learn?
I
How
have my
much
brain.
better of a mindset I'm gonna have? What I'm gonna be unstoppable.
Mm,
Bring it on. Yeah,
that's amazing,
I'm
man.
not scared of losing. Let's lose. Let's lose, but I'm losing with purpose. It's exciting. It's like I know that whatever I go through, I feel like I'm more in tune with myself. I'm more present to who I
Yeah,
am.
you have to
And
be super present.
it just makes you really, really passionate about it. Just makes you, I think there's a sense of confidence, and but it's not like a cocky confidence. It's a
Hmm.
confidence. Like if you have confidence when you have nothing, that's beautiful. You kind of tapped into something about yourself that is exciting.
Yeah,
And look, I'm not saying that you're not going to go through difficulties. Have a good
everybody.
environment around you. But look, I was watching a Kelly Slater documentary, and a lot of the time he's talking to like his coach or his psychologist or whatever, his friends, and he's 11 world time champion, and he's going through these mental battles
Hmm.
and fighting. And there was a question that they asked him. Um, how many trophies are you willing to give me in order to stop the pain that you feel in pursuing your best self constantly? And that's how the episode ended.
Oh.
And I looked at his face and he kind of smirked. And I just knew he would say, I will not give up one of them.
Ah, that's
you know?
amazing.
So what are like in the end, and I connected that I said, because he was like, you know, do you want to feel um in, you know relaxed and quote unquote happy,
Hmm.
or do you actually want to continue pursuing at 50 years old, still wanting to beat youngsters and
Yeah,
be still one of the best in the world? Like, do you like like stop? Why don't you stop? So there's something special there. There's like, why do we look at pain and suffering as? But all these top athletes, I feel they have looked at pain and suffering and challenge as their absolute happiness. And if they're not going through that, they're not happy. So are you willing to go into that world? And I think that we're not looking at pain and challenge and suffering as a way to access a, like elitism or being the best. I think that's what it takes. I think that's what when you actually see pain, challenge, and suffering as your guide, as your path, I don't think you'll get to be the best and the best. And when you see it that way, I don't think you will feel the pain or the suffering as we traditionally kind of perceive it as. Change.
Because you could be like, what is good about what you just said is you can become the champion of your own life, because not everybody will have the genetics and all the factors to get like
Mhm.
professional
Mm,
athletes.
mm,
Okay, just bring it to anything else that you're doing right now. If you decide, okay, I'm going to be the best coach at what I'm doing right now, every challenge, every possible negative scenario I can transform. And you know what? I can almost, with hindsight, I can almost laugh about it because I realize, oh, here I had these tools at the time and I really did my best to figure something out. And often when you get in these moments of very, like you're very humble, then you just release, you let go, and there will be one person giving you just one thing that you need for the next step. If you stop trying to control everything, you know what I mean? So I really felt that in my life many times, and people who knows my story about Georgia, how I came here, and it will be
mm.
in the other episode about this. But man, if you embrace all of these challenging situations and you see, it, okay, life is bringing me this because I'm not where I want to be, but I need to face this dragon or this beast in order to be able to receive what I want. You know, so I think it's
And, and
incredible.
and and I think the perception of life is everything. So the more you practice challenging your perception, that's why listening is important. That's why being coached is important. That's why learning from others is important because you're expanding your awareness about things. You know, I think that learning how to listen, I'm still learning and
Yeah.
I think it's important, but learning how to listen, learning how to be guided, it's a form of practicing improving your perception of life. You're molding that. And I think that if we are, through meditation, there's a lot of different ways you can practice consciousness, being more conscious, more aware, working on your belief system. I think that's probably the best investment. Having a coach, have some sort of mental challenges somehow. All those things really, really help. Like critical thinking, challenging your mindset. I think that's where you can get, but it's the choice of wanting to change that mindset is where it has to be a pain that is so unbearable for you that you want to make the decision to do it.
Mm.
So that's why when there's pains in your life and it makes you want to do something, mm, education, marketing, and all these marketing systems are help you to want to solve that pain, to make a decision on something. But then the journey, a lot of the times, is it doesn't really actually make you evolve. And I think that's where it's what's missing, and that's where I'm what I'm doing is I'm trying to kind of go through they have a pain, I want to solve that pain, but through the experience they also change the way they think and they become more aware of who they are and try to be better as human beings and have that space to think. One of the next challenge for me, and it's about sitting alone doing nothing, just being with myself.
Yeah.
There's there's some pain there for sure. So,
We can cover that a different time together.
yeah, yeah.
Ivan, to finish, like, if you had one thing you could share with the world, let's say I will ask to everybody.
Mm.
Let's say this podcast becomes big in a couple of years, and people go back to this episode and say, "Oh, let's see who is this Ivan guy." And do you have any like one or two things that you think are crucial as a wisdom of your own life, as your own experience, 32 years old, that you gained so far that you think could be timeless, immortal, and pass the test of time? What would it be? Tough question.
We talked about a lot about the mindset. We talked a lot about the perception of life. But I do think that being being very aware of who you are and how to elevate your consciousness. I think that's where you can change the world. If people understand how to, like, all the experiences they lived, all of the emotions, all the traumas, and they're very, very aware of who they are, and then they understand how to tap into elevating their consciousness, right, to a higher paradigm. I think that that's where you can change the world. If you can elevate your consciousness and tap into that, I think you can do whatever you want in life and be free in many respects because you're able to understand a lot about everything. Again, and emotions.
Yeah.
If you understand how to, like, direct your emotions and elevate your consciousness, I think you're pretty good. You can change the world. You can change. You have to change yourself to change the world. I don't
Mm,
know.
that's
I get
great.
excited about changing, but I do
Yeah,
think that there's a phrase that says, sometimes you want to change the world, but what about changing yourself and the world
the
changes,
world
right?
will
It's
reflect
that
your change.
you have to go in, take the time to go in. I can't put it in one sentence or one thing.
Man,
It's
it's
hard.
it's it's perfect. There's nothing bad about this. So, Ivan, people who want to connect with you, where do they go? Is it on social media? Do you have a website? What is the best way for them to connect with you, either personally or if they want to help them, like have some help with English, maybe? Just how do we find you online?
I think Instagram would be the easiest way for now. I think at Ivan Osh Valentine.
I'm gonna
However,
put the description anyway.
yeah, you can put
Yeah,
the Instagram for now. I'm working on the marketing aspect of things, but for now, I think that's the easiest way to connect with me.
good. Guys, from me on my side, so this was your episode of Your Brother's Podcast. Please like, subscribe, comment below. How did you think? What did you like about this episode? I think it was a great call. Yeah, the button, it will be on the other side. I don't know.
Notifications, buttons,
Notifications with
comment.
the lights, everything. So, and also, if you feel inspired to help me with this mission, I will have a Patreon link so you can receive some funds from the. If you feel like this is of any value for you, if it's $2, $5, I think I have a big ambition to make it grow weeks after weeks. I have many episodes to come this summer, so please support us. It's a good cause with good people, and you will get inspired for sure. And may this be the beginning of a new life for you. Thank you so much, guys. So this is Anthony Rivest for Your Brothers Podcast, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.